So today I want to talk about my favorite thing about America, which is not only our laws which protect our freedom of speech, but also just how culturally important and relevant the idea of freedom of speech is to America and Americans. So back in 1971, a very infamous book came out, and it's called The Anarchist Cookbook. Now, this book gave people instructions on how to build bombs and how to make drugs and make illegal things. And you have to understand, at the time, 1971 is really the height of the Vietnam War. And the Vietnam War was, in hindsight, now most Americans, almost every American will agree, a bad war. It wasn't good. You had 18 to 25-year-olds being drafted, forced to go into the military and fight a war. And now we realize that war wasn't really justified. It wasn't World War II where we were stopping an evil dictator from trying to take over Europe and stop the Japanese from taking over Asia, which was just kind of bad. This was more about fighting communism and things like that. And it turned out that we lost a lot of young men. A lot of young men were hurt. We lost a lot of money. In hindsight, there's nothing good about the Vietnam War. And at the time, there were a lot of young people who were protesting the war. And they were not only protesting through picketing and protests with like signs and stuff. I think there was some idea that you should do terrorist acts, like blowing up government buildings and things like that. And I'm not sure how much of this really went down, but I'm not for that. I'm not okay with that. I don't like that. I don't like the murder of people for any reason. We should use, like I said, freedom of speech. We should use our words to have an open marketplace of ideas and debate and figure out what's right and wrong through our words without hurting anyone. But the idea of this anarchist cookbook was that you could use it, you can use the information in that to pursue a terrorist route to change people's minds about, change the government's minds, lawmakers' minds about the Vietnam War. And I think that's despicable and disgusting, but I think that the ability, the right for someone to publish that book is paramount. The right of freedom of speech is the thing we need more than anything. And look, freedom of speech is the most important freedom we have. It's the one freedom that guarantees all our other freedoms. If there's some discriminatory act by the government, something we don't like being done by the government, or even by private corporations, entities, whatever, we need to be able to debate and discuss it openly, or else we can never stop these things that are bad. We can never have a discussion. We can never figure out what's right and wrong. So it's very, very important to have this. And because anything that has a benefit usually has a cost, especially something so important as freedom of speech, there's a huge cost to freedom of speech, which is you got to let assholes also speak. You got to give them freedom of speech to bigots and racists and homophobes and people that I just don't like in general. And, you know, the biggest obvious example of this in America is also the KKK, the Ku Klux Klan. They're a 150-year-old racist organization, and they'll go out and they'll have a march or do whatever, and people will get really angry. But I don't want the government to go out there and say this is illegal for you to exercise your freedom of speech, because if you exercise, if you get rid of their freedom of speech, you're also going to get rid of some bad people's freedom of speech. And if you're a dumbass who's a racist or a bigot, and you have your ideas and you tell them to the world, I'm not afraid of those ideas catching on because they're dumb and they're not logical. So freedom of speech guarantees this marketplace of ideas which can help produce better outcomes in societies, cultures, governments, whatever you want to say. So it's really necessary to have, and I think America has some of the strongest laws in the world to protect freedom of speech. It's very strange when an American comes to Korea and you find out that pornography websites are banned in Korea. Like, I understand that pornography is illegal in Korea, but the idea of banning websites, in any American's gut, it feels weird and gross that someone could ban, especially the government, could ban websites, because you get on a slippery slope of, well, how does the government define what is pornography or not? So let's say they just say pornography is naked people. And all of a sudden it's like, well, what about artists who want to show naked people? Well, that's pornography, ban it. Or what if somebody wants to use nudity to fight the government in some way, whatever. What if the government just starts really stretching and saying like, we're not even going to let you see what the thing is that we banned. So it could be somebody who's a political dissident, someone who's speaking up against the government, and they're not even doing anything that's remotely pornographic, but the government can use this idea of, well, it was pornographic, so we're banning it. And then all of a sudden you get rid of political dissidents, you get rid of political people being against the government, and you slide into a dictatorship. Now, I know it sounds to you like it's a stretch, that like, no, don't worry, the Korean government's not going to do that. But you never know, and we need to protect this right as much as you can. In America, I don't think the government could really get away with banning websites. People would be out in the streets and pissed off to no degree about it. People would not accept it. And in that way, I think, look, probably most, if not every, real democracy in the world has some amount of freedom of speech, a good amount of freedom of speech. But I think because of the American Constitution, because of our First Amendment rights, we have very strong government protections for freedom of speech. But it's not just our laws that I like. It's not just the laws that protect our freedom of speech that I like. It's also Americans and America's culture around freedom of speech. We're the most direct, straightforward people you'll ever meet. And sometimes it's annoying because, like I said, Korean people seem very nice to me, because you guys are often not super straightforward, and you guys will tell a white lie, which makes you feel kind of good. Sometimes I'll tell my Korean friend, like, oh, I'm fat. And they'll say, no, you're not fat. You're just big. It's nice. You're just a big guy. And then I always tell them, like, look, dude, I own a mirror. I could see myself. I know what I look like. I'm fat. And in that way, when you're kind of suppressing your freedom of speech, I mean, it's weird to say freedom of speech about that, but when you're telling a white lie, you're not being direct with me, it feels kind of good. It makes you seem kind of nice. But there's a lot of benefits to really exercising your freedom of speech and saying what you want. And if you look at something like feminism in Korea right now, in America, feminism has been going on for a long time, but also most people have an opinion about it, and most people will tell you what their opinion is about it, because we have this idea that if you don't express your opinion, you're kind of doing a disservice to society. It's your duty as an American to express your opinions and give out your thoughts, because it helps the world, and we can have this open marketplace of ideas and fight and argue until we get to the right idea about how we should treat men and women equally, and how we should treat different people from different ethnicities correctly, and how to get rid of bigotry, and how exactly we do all this stuff. We need the KKK, because those show us just how stupid bigotry is. And so for us, it's kind of our response as an American. I like this. As Americans, it's kind of your responsibility to say what you feel. And when I see feminism happening in Korea, I feel like this is just my perception, that there's like this 5% on one extreme and 5% on another extreme. And they're just flat out wrong. They have very weird, crazy ideas. And then you have this 90% in the middle who won't even talk. They don't even want to be a part of it. So I will ask my Korean friends, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? And they just say, there's crazy people who say this and crazy people who say that. And I just kind of stay out of it. And like I said, that culture behind it, it's not that it's illegal for Korean people to talk about this. It's that it's the culture behind it, which is for Korean people, expressing what you think this can be so rude sometimes that you don't want to go through it. Whereas for Americans in our culture, expressing your freedom of speech is kind of your duty. It kind of helps society. It's what you need to further our country and our humanity and humans in general. Hopefully that's kind of one of my goals. What I'm trying to get out of this YouTube channel that I'm making is I'm always saying, look, if you love me, if you like me, give me the thumbs up. If you hate me, give me the thumbs down. Because even if you don't like me, I want you to express what you think, because I want to make this open marketplace of ideas where we can argue and say what we want. I always say leave comments, not just for myself, but for other people who watch this video, so that you two guys can argue with each other in comments. Whenever I see that, it's a beautiful thing. And I just love the idea of freedom of speech, even if it's against me, because we need it to push our what's right and proper in the world. So I not only love America because we have really good freedom of speech laws, I love America because of our culture behind the idea of freedom of speech. If you like my video, give it a thumbs up. If you hate my video, give it a thumbs down. If you love me or hate me, hit the subscribe button. Remember, these videos come out every Friday at 7 p.m. So it's after 7 p.m. You should check out one of my new videos. Look, of course, leave a bunch of comments. Like I said, I want you to exercise your freedom of speech. Join my chat room. There's some other people in there, and we talk about various things, and it's really good to hear everyone's opinions. Like I said, use your freedom of speech. So yeah, please join the chat room if you can. The link is in the comments, in the show notes down below. And of course, the most important thing of all, have a super awesome day.
창원 그리고 김유리 덕분에 저는 이런 영상을 만들 수 있어요.
여러분의 지원 덕분에 이번 영상을 제작할 수 있었습니다.